So welcome back guys to another deck profile. Today we have another encounter deck, this time being Dragonic Overlord from Dragon Empire. So for those who are new to the game, Overlord is a very signature unit which has been around since the start of the game, and as such it has a very big fan base, as it's been around since Trial Deck 02 fan launch. So this encounter deck relies on a very Vanguard strategy which is very signature of Overlord, and uses Overlord's signature ability to withstand to get extra drive checks and push for game. So as such, it's kind of like a grind / control deck in some aspects, but because of limitations of Dragon Empire as a whole, this deck actually rewards you for playing aggressively as well. So think of it as a kind of like a control card in a beatdown deck, if that makes sense. So without ado, let's begin as we get through the right line. Let's get into the right deck. So first we have Bar, which is a skill where when you read it upon by the Harlem, which is a grade 2 over here, you can actually come last one, so search your entire deck for a grade 1 card and put it in your hand. So normally for this deck, you'll use it to get more attackers like Bar itself, or you'll use it to take sentinels like Twin Buckler Dragon. So this card allows the deck to be very flexible and gives it a very strong turn to play for 1 Crown Blast. It's very akin to the cornrows back in the day. Then as a rear guard, it is also rather useful, as when your Vanguard attack hits once per turn, this unit gets 5k until the end of turn. So basically, you can call it out early game for Peter, or you can leave it in the back row as a 30k booster or attacker, depending on state. And because as we get to Overlord skill, meeting this requirement is really very easy. Next is Nihalem. So Nihalem has a skill just like Bar, but this time ridden upon by Dragonic Overlord. You can call it out from the soul. So I want to highlight here is this is where most of your card advantage comes from in Overlord, as Dragon Empire doesn't have many card advantage cards outside of the Overdress stuff. So do keep this in mind. Anyway, when Nihalem's on the Vanguard circle, you can Soul Blast 1. Once per turn, your Vanguard's an Overlord to give the Vanguard and itself 5k at the end of turn. So this helps you form magic numbers on your Vanguard and your Vanguard circle. So you pump 5k. But during a personal right turn, which is what you're aiming for, you usually get 15k. So this is a 28k on its own, and this is a 25k on its own. With this deck, you're really be forming above 28 at least to really push games. So this really helps the deck form very consistent columns. Now, with Overlord skill, once per turn, when the unit attack hits, combat 1, discard a card, withstand this card, and give it drive -1. Then, the first skill is when it declares a attack on any rear guard actually. Your opponent cannot guard if any cards in hand. So this means that if you swing with the rear guard, your opponent really cannot defend against it, so they can't deny its second skill. So this is how Overlord guarantees a triple drive every single turn. And this is really strong. It's good to note that this skill doesn't have to hit a rear guard, so when situation comes about it, your opponent tries to deny your front row with something like Barrel Madness can get your front row, you can still swing with it and threaten for the if it hits, you can still resend the attack again. But generally, as a rule of thumb, getting the triple drive is of utmost priority in this deck. So let's get through some staple cards which will very commonly seen being played in Overlord. So of course I will recommend Dragvida, as the resend helps Overlord to get more attacks, and you can actually resolve the Dragvida skill first, then Overlord during the next attack. So you also get 3 attacks with Overlord with 100 billion, which is really insane. Perfect cards, pretty self-explanatory. Now I'll get into the 2 encounter cards, which is Dragon Monk Gojo and Berserk Dragon. So these 2 cards are very commonly played alongside Overlord because they are designed for it. Let's go through Gojo. When it boosts a Vanguard and attack hits, so you can boost Overlord to hit a Rear Guard or hit a Vanguard, doesn't matter. You can retire itself to counter charge 1. So as we will see later, there's a lot of Con Blast cards which we want to play in Dragon Empire, just to maintain and size or just retire more. So I think a card that basically is kind of free counter charge, because Overlord can't be guarded if you hit your Rear Guard. It's very useful, and it's often seen being played at 3 to 4 copies. I personally used to play at 3, but I think 4 is a very good amount. Now, on the topic of Con Blast, is another card you might use throughout the game. So Berserk Dragon has a skill when your Vanguard's an Overlord, and it attacks, it gets 5k, making it a free 15k attacker. And also, you can come last 1 when it attacks to retire a grade 2 or less, which is very good in general. So as long as you're not fighting like Bastion and all this, you can always something to snipe. Like you fight Bruce, there's Proto Bolt in the back row usually. Kill that off. If you're fighting like Varinas, and maybe they got a Grade 1 AK, was it? The Dragon Monk that gives the Grade 0 extra 5k, can kill that. And generally get Magnolia and Prison. Retiring is just very useful. But like I said, counterblast can really add up, as Overlord games don't tend to end very fast. Because Overlord skill, while it's very strong, it doesn't really push for game by itself. And on this topic, this is where I'll introduce Tensa Sheet. So this is a card from set 1. When it comes last 1, when it boosts an attack and attack hits, you can take a copy of your current Vanguard and put it in the hand. So this is what we use to actually secure our good numbers. And this is basically a personal right searcher. And again, placing it behind the Overlord will make sure the effect goes through. So as you can see, like without personal rights, let's go through a quick scenario. So let's say something like this. Let's say we told us that one for Nihalem, right? So he gets 5, he gets 5. So this will probably get a radar circle. This won't really matter. See, retire stuff and all this. This is for 18, this is for 15, this is for 15, yeah, when it attacks. So those numbers are not really very impressive in the later game. So having personal right is very crucial. And it's also another reason why I think, personally, I would play front triggers to help boost the front row more often. As most of the time, with Overlord, you're always attacking the Vanguard first, either way. As such, I think playing cards like France and Tensa Sheet is very important for making the deck run smoothly. And it gives you that edge to try and survive and just keep on pushing for game even when you have low resources. You can see all the cards I love to play are all maxed out. The only thing to explain is maybe the 2 choices here and the 3 Grade 2s here. So this card is basically a card from set 1. It's a 15k attacker when your opponent controls 2 or less regards. So in the early game, I like to put on the pressure to make sure opponents go to high damage, which will make Overlord's job of finishing the game easier, as you have to guard the Vanguard more often. Also, as a 15k attacker that requires opponents to have 2 less regards, it's rather easy, as you can have Berserk Dragon to retire. You have Overlord, which can attack a front row regard every single turn. So I play 3 of this, just as more beaters. And of course the 2 order cards here, Burning Bright's Pure Prayer from the start deck. So when you use this as a Blitz order, as long as you control 3 or more damage, your Vanguard gets 15k until the end of the battle. So it's additional, basically a trigger, which can save you alongside the new front triggers, which is this 20k front, when your opponents get 3 Vanguard. So having both of these as a deck gives the deck more stability and chances to survive, so you're able to grind out your opponent longer. Other cards you'll probably consider when playing Overlord, these 3 most oftenly come to mind. I'll start with Totoji Chirashi, I think it's the name. Basically, when it's discarded from your hand during your turn, you can put it to the soul. That's all it does. It's a Grade 1 7k. Its entire role is just to be discarded further with Overlord or the right deck. So with more soul, what you get with the deck is you can use the Nihalem more times, which is kind of good. But I don't like it with 7k, so in the key moments where you really need to form like a good number like 15 plus 8 to entry column, this card does not help you in that regard. Still, if you want to play it, I don't recommend playing more than 3, as you have really to put in more abilities in your deck to win. The other card I'll say is Crossrock Dragon, a similar card. All the highlight is of course Flame Dragon Bomber. So these cards have a very similar role. It allows you to play around people trying to deny Overlord. What I mean by that is they don't leave a front row, which is very rare actually, but this card allows the Vanguard to hit any rearguard, and this card drags a card from the back row to the front row. So these cards are not really that useful, but if the meta calls for it, they do exist. Then the last card I was to talk about is that many people have been testing out in the past or when the review started is Penetrate Dragon Tri-Bash. So this card is a simple skill where when your Vanguard declares an attack and your opponent controls 2 or less regards, you can put it to the soul to give your Vanguard a crit until the end of battle. So similar to how I talked about the 15k attacker before, it's very easy to meet, but the problem is it's Grade 3, so you can't really aggro with it, and also you don't really need to minus, as Overlord does want to overwhelm the opponent with triple drive most of the time. So actually losing a body is actually very bad for this deck, and this deck does lack the advantage generation. So if Overlord, actually pretty much your playstyle is going to be very simple. You're going to play a rather aggressive early game, so your opponent commits cards to counter your rush, So with that, you can use Overlord to quickly snipe out opponent's resources and try to overwhelm the opponent with triple drive, as this is by far the easiest triple drive to meet in the format. Besides maybe I think Seraph Snow, I think, yeah. But other than that, Overlord really excels at clearing front rows or any Vanguard dependent deck very easily, which actually gives the deck a pretty decent matchup chart for pretty much one set of support actually. Yeah. So if you really want to play a fast-paced deck, which focuses on more fundamentals and just overwhelm the opponent with the get to front trigger, get crit, yeah, then definitely play Overlord. So with that, if you enjoyed this content, like, comment, and subscribe. I'm still doing this for a bit more, and yeah, we'll see where it goes from here. Okay, goodbye.